now I will turn the program over to the Toastmaster of the evening, Joe Hoffman.
Well, before we go too far, I want to announce a few agenda changes, or actually only one agenda change. Our evaluator number 2 will be then Kat, evaluating number 2 speaker, Larry, who you just heard. But that conversation will be recorded. Okay, for those of you first timers to a Toastmaster meeting or a first timer to this club, wherever you go, Toastmasters meetings are pretty much the same. They might vary a little different. Some of them might be backward meetings, if you've ever been to one of those, some of them, but generally they have 3 parts. The first part is prepared speeches. The second part is the impromptu portion called table topics. And the third portion, which makes Toastmasters really different, is evaluation. And our evaluation portion, everyone at the meeting gets evaluated in some way. The speakers get a formal evaluation based on certain criteria from whichever project they're doing. And everyone else gets evaluated for ums, ahs, those kind of things. So that's what you'll find about a Toastmaster meeting. And that's what I like to describe for the newcomers. And I think for any Toastmaster club you go to, the only difference between the clubs are the people. So that's what's really different. Some of them are more formal, some of them are very time limited, like the lunch hour meetings that you're probably aware of. I used to belong to 2 clubs, I only belong to 1 lunchtime meeting, but they're very structured. And so in order to get done on time without the people coming into the meeting behind you, they're very run by time. So all of our stuff is timed. But every Toastmaster meeting, I have helpers. And those helpers, I'm going to ask the helpers to stand up and introduce their role in the meeting. The grammarian being held by Christine. Would you?
As your grammarian tonight, I am listening for proper use of grammar or improper use of grammar, also use of any creative words. We also have a word of the day that will be presented in a minute. Did I do the word? Okay. And I'll be listening for word of the day also.
Our next helper giving the word of the day is Lizette.
Okay, so the word? The word of the day is agog. It's an adjective, and it means very eager or curious to hear or see something. In other words, excited. For example, I am all agog to present the word of the day.
How do you spell that, Lizette?
Oh, it's spelled A-G-O-G.
Just like it said.
O-G.
A-G-O-G.
A-G-O-G.
Okay, someone's going to write it up so you can all remember. But if you're speaking, you can't remember, so you just have to write it down. Okay, our next helper is our Wizard of Oz. And filling that role is Anlu. Oh.
Hi, I will be the Wizard of Oz today, and I will take note. I will be agog to take notes and count the filler words and inappropriate interjections like ah, or and, but, like that. And at the end of the meeting, I will be reported your filler words. And this is not to discourage you, it's only because if you notice it, you can be better at it. So I will be helping you to notice it. Thank you.
And our next helper role is the timer. Wilfred?
Yes, so I'll be the timer for this evening's meeting. I'll be using this timer equipment to monitor the time for each segment and for each speaker. And when I wave a green flag, this means that you've reached your minimum. A yellow means you're at the intermediate, and then a red means that you've got to the end of your timer. Each tabletop is around 1 to 2 minutes, and then the speeches are within 5 to 7 minutes. And then at the end of the program, I'll read out the results to everyone.
And our last helper, which we do here, especially at the this Toastmasters Club, is our vote counter. We vote on the best speaker, the best table topic speaker, and the best evaluator. So filling that role. Oh, we don't have someone filling that role. Who doesn't? Oh, Beth is going to fill that role. She'll describe the ballot.
Okay, so in front of you is a ballot, and everybody, including all of our guests, are welcome to participate. The top portion is optional. If you want to write some comments down and hand them to the speaker, you can. The bottom portion is what we use to vote. So as Joe said, one for best speaker, one for best table topic, and one for best evaluator. After we've heard all speakers, we'll vote. After we've heard all table topics, we'll vote. And after we've heard all evaluators, we'll vote. And then the winners will receive trophies for a picture and then give back the trophies.
And that is the end of that. What we'll do is we'll collect your votes and we'll pass this bucket around. And actually, probably what we should do is we can then pass it back to Beth. She'll count it, and these buckets will come back up to the front again. So that process happens. Okay, let's move on to our prepared speech section. Giving our first speaker, Gerry Stevens, is speaking from the Pathways Dynamic Leadership. He's actually doing this somewhat out of order, but he's giving his second speech and using feedback from his first speech that he gave before that. So it's not a book club, it's a book study. And I assume this is promotion for his book club that he's doing. But this is Gerry's second speech on the same topic. Tonight he'll be working again to incorporate the cat's feedback to improve his first iteration of the speech. And let's welcome Gerry Stevens.
When you pick up a book with the intention of reading it, you have expectations. And when you pick that book up to read it with others, those expectations are conflated. You're going to expect, when you engage in a book club, engaging discussion, full participation, and some lasting takeaways. How many people have participated in a book club? And how many people have had those expectations fall short? Unless your book club's a wine-to-wine, person-to-person book club like Christine would like to engage in, for the most part, getting that meaningful takeaway discussion is the most challenging part. I've been in no less than 10 book studies and found that in all but one of them, 25% of the participants fell out, and there wasn't lasting takeaways. My life wasn't transformed. That was until I found the Voxer app and used it in a book study. The Voxer app transforms book clubs into book studies because it allows you to participate when, where, how, and as often as you'd like. When you take that on the surface, it's not so profound. So let's dive deeper into each one of those. First, what is the benefit of engaging whenever you'd like to? Well, firstly, how many people can remember what you had for lunch yesterday? You can? Wow, that's a pretty smart group. I would expect no less from Toastmasters, especially a group that has read over 41 books in the last year. But most of us can't remember all the details, all the nuances about things in the recent past, let alone the distant past. If you read an excerpt of a book and had something to share with others, and you have to wait till next Thursday, the chances of you remembering what you wanted to say aren't that great. There's also an incredible benefit to being able to contribute whenever you want, because it takes time zone out of the equation. You can have participants from anywhere over the globe. And you can have those that choose to read in the middle of the night share their thoughts whenever they are having them. Let's dive deeper into the where. When you can engage your participants wherever you're at, you can share insights that you just couldn't share anywhere else. For instance, I was reading a book by Carol Dweck called Mindset. With a group of teachers and some other professionals from other fields. And one of the teachers posted this picture of a bulletin board in their hallway that they designed because Carol Dweck's chapter, The Power of Yet, really resonated with that principle. You can't share that picture in a face-to-face books club unless you're passing around a tiny little phone and everybody puts down their glass of wine. That's the incredible power of being able to present wherever you're at. I've also used the app personally when I was jogging. I can't have that in-the-moment conversation with you, heart pounding, breath barely there, in a book club where we're sipping wine together. Unless the wine's really, really potent. And let's talk about the how. What is the benefit of being able to participate however you like? We saw an example here where you can use a graphic to tell your story. You can also share. You can also share other resources like an app or a link, a picture, a GIF, text, and the spoken word. Now that's really profound because in this room we're not typically that fearful of the spoken word, but sometimes when we're having a deep thought, we want to get the words right. We can text in that case. Maybe we're not in a location where speaking out loud is appropriate. And maybe we just have some of those resources that just don't translate well in person, such as a link. Let's dive deeper into the as much as you'd like. If we're face-to-face or if you're on a conference call, there are limitations both socially as well as the time constraints of your meeting as far as how long you can participate. You can't necessarily pontificate for 9.5 minutes when other people are waiting for their turn to share. In the Voxer app, you can participate as long as you want. You can pontificate on a point, really go deep. You can have a long excerpt with additional resources. That really opens up all those possibilities for you to have lasting takeaways and the ability to change your life. As Joe said, this is a segue into our book study starting tonight. We're going to be reading It's Your Ship, and we're going to try to conflate both the benefits of the Voxer app as well as our time together here. And if you're agog to take in those resources and meet with us, see how this book study can change your life, you're welcome to stay after the meeting and we'll share a little bit more about it. I'm going to turn it back over to Joe.
He's not sitting down here. That's a Toastmaster rule. You're not supposed to, they're supposed to clap until a person back down seated. So he was doing this thing up here, so we just kept clapping. That's the kind of encouragement we get in this club, where there's newcomers. Okay, our next speaker is a renowned speaker, Larry Riggs. He's speaking from Pathways Executive Coaching, not surprising, but it's from level 2, and it's understanding your leadership style. You'll see that his speech title is To Be Determined, so it's about leadership, but we're going to find out more about his leadership style. So let's welcome Larry Riggs.
Okay, truthfully, what do you call a speech on determining your leadership style? Determining your leadership style? Sounds good to me. Now, those of you who have heard me speak, you know that I never use notes. But I thought it would be great in this particular situation because in this project, what I do is go through a series of questions, and then you get scored and you rate leadership styles based on your scores in different categories. And for the most part, I thought it was pretty accurate. So the two top categories, for me, the top one was innovative, the second was pace setting. Now, innovative, interesting that the book club is going to be studying It's Your Ship. I love that book. And definitely a very innovative way to run the ship. I'm not going to give everything away, but the story is about one of the top technologically advanced ships in the Navy who had the lowest performance scores, and how the guy who took over from the captain brought the performance scores up by giving people ownership as much as he could within the confines of the Navy of their jobs. So it's an awesome book. I did sign up for it, just downloaded it into my iPad. But innovative. Leader shows vision of the future and pursues excellence. Yeah, I would say that's me. I do like to share visions. I like to be big picture. And I like to do it right, because I have learned over the years that if you charge into something and you screw it up, it takes a lot more time to come back and straighten it out. So do it right the first time. The leader encourages innovative ideas. I'll never forget the first meeting when I took over as president of this club a few years back. One of the members there asked me, well, can I form a subcommittee? Can I do this? I said, look, if it's not illegal, unethical, or against some Toastmaster rules, do it. Just let me know what you're doing. Because nothing is worse than a leader who wants to micromanage, wants to take charge of everything, and not give anybody the freedom to do anything. There is a book by John Maxwell, it escapes me which one it is because he's written so many, but he talks about, it's probably the laws of leadership, however many he counted, 21 I think, where he talks about one of those laws being the law of the lid. And the law of the lid says that if on a scale of 1 to 10, the leader's skill is at 5, everybody under that leader is going to be a 5 or less. If somebody is over that, what's going to happen? One of two things is going to happen. They're going to leave, or they're going to dumb down in order to function under that leader. Leader motivates by promoting respect for team members' creativity. Absolutely. A number of years ago, I was asked to take over our association trade show. I am not an event planner. And it's a pretty huge event. So what I did was, I found people who knew how to do stuff that I didn't know how to do. That was just, to me, that made sense. And we built an awesome trade show. So I was talking about with somebody about this today. And we're talking about themes. We always have a theme to our show. And now, as running the trade show for a number of years, I would always come up with a theme, and it was not really that great an idea. And people would come up with really cool ideas. But at least I started the ball rolling. But then I had to step back and say, you know what, I recruited people with more talent than me. I should just be quiet and listen to them. I'm glad to do that. This style can be less effective when risks taken make team members apprehensive. I do have to say, if I get somebody on my team that is really nervous about what we're doing, maybe you should be on another team. I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but I don't want to push somebody to the point, well, two things. I don't want to push them to the point where they're so stressed out that they can't deal with it, and I don't want to bring the team down to that level. Style is most effective when solving complex problems. I love to be a problem solver. Yeah, and sometimes with listings. Now I love when transactions go smoothly, but listen, if a few wrenches get thrown in the works, that's okay. We'll deal with it. We'll get it done. Pace setting. This leader expects those he leads to embrace new projects and move with speed. Yeah, that would be me. The one thing I hate is people who join a committee or a group or a team just to kind of be official, to have some status. I'm a member of such and such a team, okay? Be a member of somebody else's team. If we have a task set before us, let's get the thing done that we have set before us. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hard-nosed about it. I want to encourage people to really bring the best out in them. Leader focuses on productivity. Yeah. What is the point of taking on a task if you're not going to do the task? That's just me. This leader motivates by setting high standards for performance and then leads by example. The thing I found out in leading people is that if you set high standards, well, let me rephrase this. People will live up or down to your standards. And I know when I'm working with corporate groups, for instance, I always like to set the standards high and give them the grace to back down a little bit, maybe fail, rather than set them low and have them be bored. And the same with the team. If you got a task, go ahead and set the task high. Make it a challenge so that people can feel the excitement of getting it done, because it's very rewarding to do a hard task. But have the grace that if we don't quite get it done, well, we'll get it next time. Leaders not feel necessary to communicate a lot of detailed instructions. Now, that's true of me in the sense that I want input from the people on my team. If I've got people on my team that have talents that I don't, the last thing I want to do is give them instructions on how to do something that they're better at. This style can be ineffective if used over a long period of time. That's true. If you keep a high pace, keep your projects with a beginning and end, because if you keep that pace continuously, you're going to burn people out. And you don't want to do that. You want to bring out the best in them and then give them a little breather and then go on to the next task. And the final thing, it says, this style is effective when team members are self-motivated and highly skilled. Self-motivated is very important. Skills can be learned. We can teach people. If they are motivated and they're willing to learn, then we can bring their skill level up. And that is my leadership style.
Okay, before we proceed further, Wilford, would you move your name tag? Or raise it up, because I don't think they can see the green. They can see the yellow and red, but it just, we just noticed that up front. So you see the yellow, it's a little bit. So you don't want people to run over time. I'm gonna gog that Larry used notes this time, but he stepped out of his comfort zone. Okay. Let's see, our next speaker, who has no short introduction here, two pages here, but it's Jodie Schmidt. She's going to be giving her icebreaker, which is her first speech in Toastmasters. So she was brave to get here, but she's going to be talking about how she got here. I'm going to sort of skim through some of this because we're short on time, but she's going to share the topic of a midlife crisis, and hers in particular, that she's going to trace back through years when she graduated from college with a degree in art, and she's going to talk a little bit about that background. So I won't go into too much detail, but that's the approach she's going to take. So her journey to where she is now. On that note, let's find out how Jodie Schmidt got here.
Technical difficulty here with my PowerPoint. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So I'm just going to stand over here so I can see a little bit better. Welcome, Toastmasters guests. Tonight I will be speaking about the topic of midlife crisis and my midlife crisis in particular. But first I'd like to give you a little bit of background. So I've got a picture of me when I was younger, kind of up at the top, and then one that's a little more contemporary. Just to kind of get that feeling of, time passing. Let's see, so I would trace my midlife crisis back to my post-graduation years. As Joe mentioned, I graduated from McDaniel College. It's a liberal arts college in Westminster, Maryland. My degree was in fine arts. And before I get into that too much, I do want to give you a little bit of background on how I got interested in art. So, I'm the youngest child of 10 children. So, when I was growing up, I had to get very creative with entertainment, and I also lived out in the country, so there weren't a lot of kids around. This was before there was internet, phones, all that other stuff. So you actually had to use your imagination to be entertained. So I learned how to do that, and it's probably because of that background environment that I developed an interest in art, which started with creative play, making drawings of things, making my own fun. So for example, making my own fun, I would take what I could find and I would make a water slide. So I would take these fiberglass sheets, I would put a hose on top of it and turn that on and then have a wading pool at the bottom. So I would make my own water slide. So I had to be inventive and come up with things like that. So that's just an example. So I found refuge in imaginative play and art, and I started doing drawings pretty much as soon as I could pick up a pencil around age 2, and then I took art classes when I was 9 years old. So that's me in my outdoors area. And these are a few of my sisters. I don't have all of the family members, but that just gives you an idea. And this is me, of course, at the bottom. So, let's see what else. And then I'm going to go on to the next. So now I'm going to share a quote with you from a book that I read. I've read it several times, but I reread it a few months ago. And it's by Ann Tyler, and it's called Back When We Were Grown-Ups. And I want to share this quote because I feel that it encapsulates that feeling of being lost and becoming somebody that you did not set out to become, and that's where I found myself at this time. So this is from chapter 1, page 1. Once upon a time, there was a woman who discovered she had turned into the wrong person. So that's the main character, her name is Rebecca. So I'm not going to share any more because I don't want to ruin it for you, but that really encapsulates where I'm going with this. So again, I mentioned that I graduated with baccalaureate in art, and that's a photo of McDaniel College where I got my degree. So when I was there, I had a dream to be an art teacher, and I wanted to teach in public schools, so I studied art and all the different mediums in art, sculpture, painting, drawing, all of those things. And I had this very clear vision at the time of what I wanted to do. So in order to get qualified to teach in the public schools, I took the praxis to obtain a teaching certificate, and I also took some classes in education, which is part of the teacher certification process at McDaniel. However, you can only start at the very introductory level until you pass the praxis once. So it's sort of a gateway into the rest of the program. So these are some portraits I did while I was a student. I did a whole series about self-portraits. So these are from college. These are oil paintings. So the outcome was that I failed to pass the praxis test, and I would like to qualify that by saying the math section of the praxis test. Not the entire test did I fail, but that one section. And I took the test twice, the math section twice, to try to get a passing score, but I wasn't able to obtain that passing score. The other 2 sections were really easy, the writing and the reading. So because of that, I wasn't able to apply for the education program at McDaniel, which is part of the teacher certification process. So I couldn't go forward at that point. So I took some time and I regrouped, and I decided that I was going to apply for a graduate degree in art. And this was after I had already graduated at this point. So I had my baccalaureate. So I spent several months putting together a portfolio and getting letters of recommendation from my professors, but I was rejected for several of the master's programs. And at that point, I gave up my dreams of teaching in art. I felt demoralized, and I stopped making art for quite some time. And at that point, I started applying for customer service jobs at libraries, restaurants, offices, and finally at the funeral home where I work now. And it was more of a means to an end, and I wasn't really thinking beyond that. So part of this midlife crisis was I realized that a paycheck is not enough for me anymore. And so I've been doing some introspection as a result of that. I've been rethinking my decision about working in customer service. I've been looking at other ways to reconnect with my creativity, whether it's drawing in my own free time or looking for more creative work. And part of that desire to reconnect with my creative self has been making more art. And I mentioned that. So one of those series I created was a poetry illustration series, which has been an outlet for my feelings about the human condition. And I've also started applying for art enrichment teaching jobs. So that's a really big step for me. And I'm looking back 12 years since I graduated. If I had it to do again, I would not have given up so easily on my dream of teaching art. I would have really found some way to overcome those obstacles. So here's some artwork that I did that I mentioned from that series. And my conclusion is that you really should not give up if you have a dream and you really want to do something, that you should look for ways to overcome that, or find a way around that obstacle, but don't settle for the easy way out. It's really worth it to go after that dream if you really have this burning desire to do something. And I would have done so many things differently if I had it to do again. I would have reapplied for graduate school. I would have met with the faculty to find out why my application was rejected. I would have asked for feedback on my art projects, and then I would have reapplied a second time. And I also would have joined local art organizations to find support from other artists so that I could keep trying to get into graduate school and overcome those obstacles. So that is it for tonight.
Thank you, Jodie. I'm agog that you're not the only one who has a midlife crisis. I've had several of them.
Several.
Yeah, but I mean, your artwork is beautiful.
Oh,
I really
very kind.
love
Thank
the
you.
samples you gave us. So you shouldn't give up.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to our next section, which is table topics. We're a little behind schedule. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, vote counter. If you have, I had stuff here. Oh, yeah, here. If you have your ballot, vote for the best speaker. We had 3 of them, great speakers. We had Gerry, we had Larry, and we had Jodie. I know who I'm voting for. I'll pass it on down. Okay, let's move on. Table topics. Our table topics master tonight is Leanne. And let's see how we're doing for time, 23, or how about we do 2 and let's see where we stand, okay?
Hello, I am your table topics master. Table topics is the impromptu portion of our meeting, so nothing is planned. Nobody knows what either the game is, or the idea is, or the questions are. And it's all volunteer. I don't pick on people, so you have to raise your hands. My thought tonight was, since it's the new year, so I have a kind of a New Year's questions, thinking about the past year and the future year, or I guess the year that we're in now. So would anybody like to come up and pick a card?
Why don't you ask who doesn't have a role and you can pick from those people?
I just said I don't pick people.
Well, just have to raise your hand.
I'm not gonna have to roll, but I'll go.
Well, there you go. Pick one and I'll read it. And then you can go with it. Okay. What is your most memorable New Year's Eve? Easy.
So 2008 was my grandparents' 45th anniversary. Pretty big deal. They're old, they've been married a while. And because they're old and they have money, they took us all on a cruise, which was super cool. It was a cruise in Hawaii. And on New Year's, we happened to be staying on one of the islands I completely forget now. The room we were renting was actually at the top of this big building. And it was higher than pretty much every other building around it. So when all the fireworks were going off on New Year's, we could see them going off around us. And I guess because Hawaii is wet and humid, they don't have to really worry about setting anything on fire. So they were everywhere, you could see them out over the bay. It was amazing New Year's. Unlike this New Year's where I was asleep at 12.
Who else wants to come up? Rachel? That's okay. What big thing will, or you hope will happen in your family this year? 1 to 2 minutes.
Okay. Family is very important. I grew up in a family that was somewhat dysfunctional. So I'm always doing these checks and balances, making sure that everybody in my family is functioning the way they should. You know, I'm checking rooms all the time to make sure they're clean. I'm checking homework all the time. And recently I've started actually checking in with people. Even 5-year-olds have feelings. You know, they have these complex little feelings about what happened on the bus, what happened in their classroom. Husbands have feelings as well. And you know what? I've decided that this year, I'm really going to get more personal, more intimate with my family. And I'm hoping that that functions properly. I'm all agog to see what will happen when I actually continue to reach out to people in such a vulnerable way. Because I do a lot of the talking and the ordering and the pointing and the checking, but I don't do a lot of allowing people to check in with me. And that's what I'm hoping will happen in 2019. I'm hoping that not only will I get a better understanding of my family, but that they'll get a better understanding of me. And when one of them is standing in front of a Toastmasters or something like that, when they talk about the importance of family, they'll talk about how grounded it made them feel, you know, being a part of my family, so.
Should we have one more table topics? We're over time. Do people mind staying? Okay.
We're done?
We're good? What do people want to hear another one? Yeah, okay, we'll do one more. Oh, does no one else want another one?
Does anyone, you had your hand raised.
Okay, we'll do one more.
If you had the power to change the New Year's Day, which day of the year would you choose and why?
If I had the power to change New Year's Day, what day would I change it to?
Like if you didn't want it to be January 1st, what other day of the year would you make?
Oh, okay. The day my grandbaby was born. A grandma now, and I thought about what it would be like. I assumed what it would be like, but when it happened and when I saw the baby, it was a a very, very special feeling. It was a very different feeling from being a mom. It was sort of like a relief and a love that was like, oh, I get to carry this baby and give the baby back. So yes, that was a very special. September 12th.
Well, now we have to vote. So we have these ballots for the best table topic speaker. We have, I had my list here. Who was, Alex was first. We had Rachel, and we had Rosette. So best table. Well, let's move on. And I'm going to turn control over the meeting over to our general evaluator, Lisa.
Okay, don't forget to put in the votes, and they're going around. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and all our wonderful guests. This is a wonderful way to start off the new year, seeing all these new faces. Right, Christine, you agree with me? Excellent. So what I am doing is I am the general evaluator today, which means I conduct the evaluation portion. And I have such a great team working for me, which is even better. They're doing a lot of the work. So I'm going to call on them to fulfill their role. Oops. And this important part of the evaluation is we've learned things from the speakers, but we're also going to learn some information from the feedback. And that in itself you can say, wow, yeah, I can apply that in my next speech. So the first one I'm going to go with is Alex, who evaluated a speech given by Gerry. So please help me welcome Alex. Okay.
So, the purpose of Gerry's speech was to present on a topic, receive feedback, and apply that feedback. And he was very gracious, and he actually gave me the feedback he had received 2 months ago on November 1st, which I think would be great if people try and do forward. So now I know what to look at when I was giving feedback on the speech. So there's 2 things that he was really supposed to work on the speech. The first one was his introduction. His last speech, it wasn't exactly clear where he was going and what the end goal was. But at the end of this introduction, I thought that was very clear to me. That he did a lot better job of laying the foundation that a lot of book clubs are not very good, and that Voxer is very helpful in fixing a lot of the issues. You then went to your middle of the speech, in which you focused on 3 main things: when, where, and how. Now, I thought these were really good points to make, because they're things I would never have thought of in a typical book club speech. I thought it was great that you could say anything whenever you want. I thought it was great you could do it wherever you want. So you could have book clubs with people from another country, with different nationalities and different cultures and different perspectives. And I thought the how was fantastic, because I know personally, I don't actually like talking to people that much. If I know you, it's different, so I'm a little more friendly. But I really did like that with Voxer you can message people, which is a completely different way of communicating people, which is pretty cool. The one thing I did notice, and I think in the beginning of your speech you said, when where, how, and then somewhere towards the end of your middle part you said, and now I want to talk about as much as you want. So I don't know if I missed something, but I don't think you mentioned that at the beginning of when you're transitioning to the middle part. So it's the only thing I really noticed. And then you said you wanted to dive into stuff a couple times, maybe just say that once, and then come up with different transitions. And then you stumbled over a few things, but it's not really that big of a deal. I liked your conclusion. Normally when I conclude, I kind of summarize the middle part, but I actually didn't think you needed to do that, because win to lose, and you're saying, hey, we're starting the book club. And I think at that point, everybody knew why we were doing dogs here. So I thought that was great.
Thank you, Alex. The second evaluator is going to be Venkat, who is evaluating the speech given by Larry. Please help me welcome Venkat.
When Larry started with the topic of the speech, leadership title, I thought myself, if I were in his position, how would I do that speech? I went blank. Because it's really a dry topic. If someone asked you, what are your leadership styles? You could probably say it in 2 or 3 sentences. It'll be done. But to give that topic, to give that response as your speech, is really hard. How did Larry do that? One of the powerful tools of effective public speaking is personal stories and examples. Larry picked that tool and applied to perfection. He gave several leadership styles, and for most of them, he had some annotations or personal examples or stories. They still stay in my mind. It was really a complete speech. It had every element in it. One of the factors, one of the criteria was making eye contact. He specifically made sure he made eye contact with every one of us. I was sitting in the corner, he turned around a few times and made eye contact. So that was very good. Now, what could he have done differently? It's really hard to say. But if I were him, I would have done a couple of changes. Number one, he went on with several leadership styles. I would have probably stuck with few, 2, 3, or 4, with an expansive example story behind, so it would stay in our mind for longer. Number 2, he said he has never used notes, which is true, we all know, and he used the notes for reference. And it was, when he was reading, it was hard for us to follow. I would have used a digital presentation just to use it as an anchor and also for the audience to understand it better. Other than that, I couldn't have done better than him. He did a perfect speech. It had every element in it. He covered all the aspects of it. The only thing he could have done it better is by shorting the speech and using digital media. Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Srinivas, and he is evaluating Jodie. Please welcome Srinivas.
Jodie, I think you showed a lot of courage to tell your personal story in a way that resonated with everybody, especially me. I like your title, How Did I Get Here? Perfectly suited your entire story that you told. Number one thing, you showed courage, and your use of visuals acted as a use of notes in a clever way, in your own innovative way that you always wanted to do with your art. It's acted as a nice begin, middle, and end to your story, so you can go through it smoothly and not get stuck, even though you will cross the time period, I think. So basically, in a icebreaker, we look for your passion and your genuine interest to get to know you, which you fulfill perfectly. I appreciate the use of your slides with nice visuals. You know, that your art is fantastic. And yeah, I like the phrase that you said, imaginative play and certain, while growing up. Those really stuck, about you and get to know you better. As far as the improvements concerned, I mean, you can cut down some of the details. I saw some of the details that took away the real gist of your speech. So you could cut down some of that. And you could, you've touched upon all the aspects of next level of speeches. But use of the visuals would cut down some of the things like you can't use the eye contact. And that's something that's very important at the beginning of your speech development. Vocal variety is good and your passion is very perfect. And also just because everything is dark, you can't see you much, we're all focusing on that. So it's a trade-off, but you could try something different at the same time, not focus much on the visuals. And also you could have used the space much in a better way, so we can see you. And your comfort level is very good. And you could, for improvements, to challenge yourself, you could, do a speech on the art, how to make, and also bring some of your art pieces.
Oh, wow.
Overall, I think you made a good ending by doing a conclusion that called for action, that, if you go back, I would have pursued my interests and dreams in a much better way. And that's a good takeaway, and that comes with a lot of advanced speakers. Good job. Thank you.
Now you have the last piece of paper, a little sliver, to evaluate the best, to vote for the best evaluator. So if you could do that, isn't that?
Yeah.
Oh, and then I have to, yeah, okay, thank you. So there was Alex, Alex back there, right, who evaluated Gerry. And there was Venkat, who evaluated Larry. And then there was Srinivas, who evaluated Joe. So please write one down, put it in the bucket, and pass it on so our vote canner can tabulate the votes. Next, we're going to hear from Marion, who's Christine, who's been listening for good uses of language as well as points of improvement. And don't you also count how many times we've used agog?
I do count how many times we've used it.
Okay.
I'll start with that, and I have to apologize because I forgot that I was counting them. But I do know that Rachel used the word and Will used the word. Did anybody else, who else used it?
Well, I didn't.
Gerry, Joe. All right, good job, guys.
Gerry used it.
Yes. A few comments. Joe, you made the comment that meetings vary a little different. I think you just got it. I did like review the first iteration. I like that phrase. Gerry, you slipped in a wherever you're at, as opposed to wherever you are. You used conflated and conflate, which were new words to me. I think they would even be a good word of the day. I have to admit, it's over my head. I don't know what that word means. So considering that your audience might be a little bit of a dummy with that, maybe if you said conflated and then repeat that into what it means. What does it mean?
It means basically the two goals merging.
Okay, so maybe conflated, goals merging, just for people like me.
Does that kind of mean like your expectations are even higher
Yeah.
when you're in that group as opposed to when you're just reading the book by yourself.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. That's
what
a
I
better way to
guessed,
say
but I
it.
wasn't sure if I understood what you meant.
Well,
Yeah.
that makes much better sense, and I love that we used the word.
Yeah.
You used
That's my
pontificate,
guess.
which was a great word. At the end, you said, I would like to turn over to Joe. You don't really have to say, I would like, because just the fact that you're doing it is, you don't tell us you would like to do it. And then turnover, and I heard a couple, I'm gonna turn over to whoever the presenter was. Grammatically, the definition of the word doesn't really work. It would be perhaps better to say, please welcome back, Joe. Lisa did good with that tonight. Jodie, I liked your word introspection tonight. Rachel, I liked your complex feelings. Srinivas, you had said passion very perfect. Your passion was evident, or your passion was obvious. Grammar was great tonight. Good job.
Next, we have the Awe Counter, the Wizard of Oz, and that would be Indian.
I would do in the same order of the meeting order. For the Toastmaster of the evening, Joe used 5 ahs, 2 ums. Gerry didn't use any ahs. Larry used 1 1 ah, and 1 you know. Jodie used 3 ums and 1 ah. Leanne, as a table topic master, used 1 ah and 1 Alex, as a table topic speaker, used 1 so. And Rachel, as a guest, you didn't use any ahs. Congratulations. And Lisa also didn't use any ahs. As a general evaluator, Lisa used 1 ah. And Alex, as an evaluator, I noticed that it's the same thing you did as starting your speech with a so. And Venkat doesn't use any ahs, and Srinivas used 2 you knows.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have the timer.
Yes. Right. So for the timers, for the speakers, we have 5 to 7 minutes. And Gerry, you were within your time frame of 6.38. And Larry, you went a little over, but still within the 30 seconds variance, so that's fine. Jodie, you went really over, almost close to 2 minutes, so you might have to watch the time. For evaluators, we have 2 to 3 minutes. Alex, they were all within the time frame. Alex was 2.4, and Venkat was 2.36 minutes, and then Sylvanus, you went over by a minute and 10 seconds. And then for the tabletop, it's between 1 to 2 minutes, and they were all within the time frame, but Alex and research went below the minimum. At least you have to spend like a minute. And Rachel was 1 minute 30 seconds.
Thank you. Now it's my turn as general evaluator to evaluate the meeting. And I think we did a good job. We did run a little late. Pardon? Yes, but we are catching back up. And I didn't get the feeling that it was laborious or that it was dragging, that there was still excitement there and we were all eager to hear what we were hearing. I do want to thank the evaluators, all of you, for giving articulate and insightful, honest, and educational evaluations. You all did. And that is what I really enjoy about Toastmasters, because every single time I learn something. So thank you for that. All my helpers, again, very articulate. Christine, you forgot to count, but that's okay. That's okay, we'll forgive you for that. Lizette, thank you so much for such a great word of the day. We all enjoyed that. And it was a fun word to say. I love fun words to say. So we also learned something. So hopefully we can pepper our speeches during the week, and hopefully no one looks agog at you like, what are they saying? Okay. It is, I think it was a very exciting meeting, and I'm so happy that we had so many fresh faces here, and that we're all excited about the new year, and this is being the first meeting of our new Toastmasters year. So I will then.
Give the control.
Pardon?
Give the control.
Oh, thank you, because I didn't want to say turn it over to you. I will now
Give the control back.
give the control back to Joe.
Let me get my agenda back here, so I don't stray from the agenda. Now it's time to present the awards, which we've all been waiting for, which we have to get back at the end here. But let's start with the best table.
Yeah, I'm coming to get it.
Oh, okay.
Because we take pictures.
Okay. Well, I'll let you handle that while I'm
Okay.
announcing the winners. And after you're announced, stay up here because we're going to take pictures before you leave. So let's start with tabletop.